a real pleasure to see all of you here today, and we're going to be together now for just a little over 2 hours. And I hope during this time that we will have the chance to really revel in and be amazed with two beautiful cycles that were created in about the same time. The first has to do with these instruments. If you go back to 1600s in Cremona, one of Cremona's residents, Monteverdi, was a composer that was inventing music that was changing the possibilities of what we expected from music. Well, he needed instruments to create this new music. And what is our great good fortune is that the instrument-making tradition, and particularly the work of Amati, and this, by the way, is the Amati that will be the Niccolo Amati that you'll be hearing a little later now, had the skill and the will to create instruments that could fulfill these dramatic expectations, that could actually be the equal of the human voice. And this form, this beautiful form that we've come to know as the violin, these set of proportions, were things that basically the work of Amati and his family settled on these proportions around that time. And they did succeed in providing an instrument which could have the drama and the beauty and the warmth of the human voice. Well, fortunately, that led to a cycle of activities that spread over the next 100 years or so. And what it has produced, you see here, is a cycle of 5 violins. This is the Goldberg Baron Vita Guarneri del Gesù. This is the Castelbarco Stradivarius. This is the Betz Stradivarius. This, as I already mentioned, is the Amati, Niccolo Amati, the Brookings Amati. And this is the Chrysler Guarneri del Gesù. These instruments are different, and this concert is all about enjoying what those differences are. But it's also very important to see that this cycle of making, this tradition that they passed from one to the other, was really a miracle of being able to combine absolutely beautiful craftsmanship and somehow an instinct, a successful response to what the player needed to make beautiful music. I say it's a cycle, and it's a cycle that somewhat came to an end. After the work of Guarneri and somewhat of Bergonzi, this golden period of making really had a stop in Cremona. As many of you may have heard, Mr. Bodini gave a wonderful presentation at 1 o'clock this morning about Cremona as it is now, which is an enormous center for violin making. As it happens, the bow that I'm going to be playing on today is by a Cremonese bow maker, Emilio Slaviero. A wonderful copy of a Tourt bow. But the success of this cycle and what these instruments have in common is something that forever changed the history of what we could expect from a violin. And it's changed that expectation for all violin music which followed and everywhere in the world. These violins have become the definition of what we would like to hear from an instrument. But you know, I mentioned all the names that come from these instruments. And largely the way we know them came from pieces of music that were written in the 19th century, artists that were operating in the 20th century, collectors that came much after. It's very important to realize at the time that they were being made that these were workshops that had lots of sawdust in them and lots of sweat going into getting exactly the right detail of how these instruments should work. I'm sure they were maybe not super messy, but fairly messy, and there was a lot of work going on. And of course, these are 5 examples, but when you really contemplate the number of instruments that were produced in this period, and the almost universal great quality of what was represented in that work. It's just a remarkable momentum of artistry that showed itself at that time in Cremona.